To be a renowned and respected leader, you have to have some level of internal ambition. Your will to lead is often dictated by your wisdom of vision and your internal desire to fill multiple hats ambitiously. For your diversity of perspective can truly be your hidden and open competitive advantage all at the same time. How you direct and use such energy will determine the level of sustainability when it comes to your impact. And the great thing about life is that we all have a chance to write that definition for ourselves. For my friend Douglas Greenlaw, he is an Amazon #1 best-selling author, a decorated military veteran, the former president of MTV Networks, and he possesses a keen sense of adventure. His life story, told in his memoir, entitled Forged by Lightning, is nothing short of extraordinary. He's climbed mountains such as Aconcagua and Kilimanjaro. He is in the Military Hall of Fame, and he's risen from a lower middle class background to the top of corporate America. He survived a near-death experience on the battlefield. He also says that it's important to embrace the idea of positive thinking at any age. He joined me this week to tell me about his personal and professional experiences, including his experiences building relationships in the media with entities such as iHeartRadio, and how he did it at the executive vice president and CEO level. Greenlaw is someone with a wealth of experiences in a number of fields. So this, my friends, promises to be a fascinating conversation which begins right now. So without further delay, I'm Kevin McShann. Let's have this conversation. If you're ready, my friend, I'll take a moment to welcome you to the program, and I'm super excited to learn about your life experiences and how you've given back to the world, my friend. Great to be with you this afternoon, and thanks so very kindly for a few minutes, my friend.
All right.
Absolutely. Now, Douglas, I know that your life is centered around the idea of adventure, my friend, which you've chronicled in your book, Forged by Lightning, my friend. I know you're a dedicated and decorated military veteran, and you're the former president of MTV Networks, my friend. So tell me about your sense of adventure and where it comes from, my friend. I find it to be so fabulously fascinating. So tell me all about it.
Well, I'm a descendant of a little short 5'2" feisty little mother who opened a lot of doors for me, starting at a very young age. She used to, my mother was working for a small marketing firm in outside of Chicago. And she used to take me on calls with her, and she'd take me to dinner with her best clients in Chicago quite often, and I was like 9 years old. So my first business meeting was as a 9-year-old, and she taught me which forks to use and which knives to use and all of that, and how to behave myself at the table with her clients. And so I grew up in a market with a marketing mother, and that's pretty much how I got my start.
Yeah, fabulous, my friend. Now, I'm curious how your military service has really impacted your desire and a willingness to serve others, my friend. What are your thoughts there?
Well, I'm the luckiest man you've ever met in your life, bar none. I was struck by lightning when I was 13. Um, I was killed on the battlefield in Vietnam and revived. I was dead for about a little over 5 minutes, no heartbeat, no respiration. And when they finally brought me back, I was happy to be there. And unfortunately for me, and I hope you take this okay, I lost my religion in Vietnam at that point in time, because when I died, I saw the other side for about 5 minutes, and there's nothing there. There's nothing there. No white lights. Didn't see my grandfather welcome me to heaven. Didn't see Jesus. Didn't see God. I just saw darkness. And so when I woke up, I thought earlier in my Vietnam experience, I killed over 200 men myself in a Phantom jet that I had on the phone calling in bombs on the enemy. I stopped counting at 70, and they were all over the place. So I figured it was about 200. What God's going to let me kill 200 people? So I'm not an atheist by any means. People a lot smarter than I am believe in all of it. So maybe they're right, maybe I'm wrong. I hope I'm wrong. But I'm like doubting Thomas. Even Jesus had a doubting Thomas in his group. And so I'm sort of a doubting Thomas. I have a hard time buying the whole thing, but that didn't impact my combat life at all. I was a 23-year-old infantry company commander in charge of 158 men in the jungles and valleys and mountains of South Vietnam. So it was an eye-opening experience, to say the least, at 23. My men were all 18, 19 years old. You don't see Harvard MBAs out there in the combat zone. You see young 18, 19-year-old boys. So that's how I started it. And when I came to from being killed, I had a great respect for life and other people. And the fact I'm so lucky, I feel driven to spread the luck.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely, Douglas. And my friend, we're getting dangerously close to Thanksgiving, so I'm curious to ask you specifically, Douglas, what do you think you're most thankful for, and how does the concept of resilience play in your everyday thinking, my friend? What are your thoughts there?
I'm very thankful for being alive. I'm thankful for being married to a wonderful woman for 52 years. And if you read my book, I had some pretty wild times when I was younger. When I met my wife, Lynn, that was it. All that went away, and I focused on her 100%. So I'm very grateful to be alive, happily married with a wonderful son who lives in Nashville, about an hour away from where I live. Mm-hmm. And I've had this wonderful life, Kevin. Wonderful. I've had more luck than I deserve. And I understand that, and I appreciate it. So I have a feeling I need to pass it on.
Life is a wonderful thing, Douglas. Just very quickly, I'll share a quick anecdote about myself. So, Douglas, I was born with cerebral palsy, and I found out at the age of 9, my friend, that I wouldn't be able to walk for the duration of my life because of the severity of my disability, and I always look at life as a blessing because every day you wake up is a chance to make a difference, isn't it?
Absolutely correct. And I have a special feeling for you and how you survived and how you have this successful podcast. And I'm sure your life is as interesting as mine has been. And we both probably should feel pretty lucky about it.
Well, we only have one life to live, so we might as well maximize it, right?
That's right. That's right.
So, Douglas, you mentioned you've been married for 52 years, my friend. So tell me, what's the secret to a happy marriage?
I like to say this. Uh, you're a younger guy than I am, so I like to say this to people your age. I don't know if you're married or not, but
I'm not, but yeah.
I say to my young couples, I tell them this story all the time, is that I've been married for 52 years for one reason and one reason only. I make all the major decisions in my family, all of them. Now, in 52 years, a major decision has not come up yet. But when it does, I'm going to make it. And the women smile at that because there's a lot of truth to it. We have a 50-50 arrangement.
Yeah, oh, absolutely, my friend. And, I'm curious, Douglas, how did your upbringing from the middle class family you grew up in, rising to the top of corporate America, really impact you, my friend? I'm wondering if you could reflect on that experience and how it affected the trajectory of your life. What are your thoughts there?
I would say coming from a lower middle class upbringing. My father was a factory worker in the steel mills. I worked in the steel mills my 16th, 17th, and 18th year. I was in the mills working double shift, 16 hours a day, and replacement for vacationing steel workers in the summer as I would be there during the summer of my school years. And I was 16. You had to be 18 to work in the mills, but I told them I was 18 and nobody checked. In those days, they didn't have fancy HR departments, so they didn't check. And I worked that hard. I worked 18 hours a day, two shifts, 16 hours a day, two shifts, and very hard physical work as a kid. And I made a decision to myself that I need to break out of this. I need to get. I had big dreams, and I remember as a kid dreaming that someday I wanted to be rich and live in a $50,000 house. that was my main motivator when I was a child. As I grew up, I just took it one day at a time. The Peter principle never got a hold of me. You know what the Peter principle is when you get a position that you can't perform and in which you cannot perform because you're not ready for it. I always worked my way up from the ground, from being a steel worker child to freshman in college to a private in the Army. I worked my way up by being honest and working hard. And if I wasn't as smart as the next guy, I outworked him 100% of the time. So I work hard. I try to be honest, and I try to perform at a level that what I'm at. So when I was at a lower level, right out of college, I got a job as a salesman at a rock and roll radio station. That's what got me into the media world. And I was the hardest working guy on the staff. I was the first one there, last one to leave. And I sold a lot. I was very good at it. So I took it to the next level as local sales manager, and I managed those guys, and I did my best, made a good presentation to them. In other words, every level I got to, I worked really hard. And I have a favorite saying by the guy by the name of Harold Janine that founded AT&T, and he says, "We're all judged by one criterion. When all is said and done, we're all judged by one criterion, and that's performance. I don't care what you do. If you're a preacher, you got to perform. If you're a husband, you have to perform. If you're a wife, she has to perform. Anybody that makes it has to perform at their current level, or you're wasting everybody's time, including your own. So I always tried to do the best I could at what I had in my hands.
Yeah, absolutely. And, Douglas, I want to talk to you about forming relationships. As you mentioned earlier in our conversation, you're a decorated Vietnam veteran, my friend, and you've collected both silver stars and bronze stars and 2 Purple Hearts, my friend. So I'm wondering how your military service works and your advantage when forming relationships, and what do you think is the key to forming great relationships, and how did your time in the military really inform your ability to do that, my friend? What are your thoughts there?
Well, when I was a kid, I was always chosen to be captain of the baseball team or the football team all the way through high school and college. And I carried that interest with me into my adult life, and that attitude worked very well in the military. In order to climb the scale in the military, you have to perform, and you have to learn how to be a leader. And so I learned early on how to lead. Keep in mind, when I was a company commander in Vietnam, I was 23 years old. I had 158 men under my command at 23. That's pretty young. Mm-hmm. But my fellow soldiers that I was commanding were 18, 19. So I had to lead these people, and I didn't have any choice. I was the man, so I had to lead them. And so I put everything I had together from my mother, through my life, and through what I found in the military, which fit me like a glove. And my first time at college, I failed in a very big way. I missed my grades 3 times, and I quit and joined the Army. It was the smartest thing that ever happened to me. And then I went back after the Army and finished, got all A's. But the idea of being a leader is something you grow into, and either you have it or you don't. And there's nothing wrong with not being the leader. I had some great followers with me, and I had big people over me. So in order to be a good leader, you have to also be a good follower, because I got my messages from the colonels and the generals, and I passed it on to my men. So you have to be a good leader, and the higher you go. And I've been high. As CEOs, I've seen some bad leaders, and they get there by their Harvard network or whoever it might be. I didn't have any network. I went to Indiana University, no networks there. So I just found myself in leadership positions the whole way, and even today, I find I play golf twice a week, and I joined a big group of 18 guys that play every Monday, and it turns out I end up the leader of the group. I didn't want to be the leader, but I am today, just because I'm so experienced at dealing with people, and so it's not a very complicated story, but it's the way it happens. And the good leaders have a lot of experience under their belt, the best of them.
Yeah, absolutely. And, Douglas, I want to talk to you about effective leadership in just a moment and get your thoughts on that. But I also know that you've climbed 2 of the biggest mountains in the world, my friend, including Mount Kilimanjaro. And I'm curious to get your thoughts on how your sense of adventure and those experiences helped to shape the person you are today.
I'd say it did some honing for me. It really didn't create. I love the outdoors. I backpacked all over the world: Russia, China, Japan, all over Europe, India. I've been all over the world. And so when I run across an area like Africa, I thought, well, it'd be fun to climb the highest peak in the continent of Africa, and that's where it is in Tanzania, Mount Kilimanjaro. And I loved it. People ask me, and then I even did a harder mountain, Mount Aconcagua, which is in Argentina. It's the highest peak in the Western Hemisphere, 23,000 feet. And you get up to 23,000 feet, the world changes. The wind is steady coming from over Chile from the Pacific Ocean. The wind is 70 miles an hour sustained winds with gusts of 120, and horizontal snow, because it snows all the time on top of a tall mountain like that because it's so cold, and the humidity has an effect. So it can have a clear day and it'll be snowing. So when you're up there, it's a life experience. Aconcagua is the hardest mountain in the world to climb, harder than Everest. It's just not as high. Everest is 29,000 feet. Aconcagua is just a little over 23,000. So it's not as high, but it's very difficult. And when you accomplish something like that, it adds to your experience. Of course, you can't do it. I would suggest, even with your disability, if you and I could pick you up, not physically, I could go to your house, put you in my car, drive to the airport, we fly to Africa, and we go to Tanzania, we get at the base of Mount Kilimanjaro. You and I together, with my help, could climb Kilimanjaro. It's not that hard. It's hard. People die on that mountain, but it's hard. But you could make it. I can tell by your attitude, you could make it. And that's my point. You have no interest in that. You probably didn't realize you could do it, but you could. You need help. But you need somebody there with you to do it. And it's quite an experience. People ask me why I climb mountains, and I say, I don't know. You tell me why I climb mountains, and they're usually right. It's the experience, stretching your
horizon, yeah.
And a beautiful view like you've never seen before in your life. When you get on top of those mountains and you look out over the mountains, it's breathtaking. So that's basically why I climb mountains. I don't do it anymore. I'm retired from that now, but I'm staying at sea level now. I'm not doing mountains. So now I'm planning a trip to cross country ski to the North Pole from Norway, 150 miles. I can do that.
Well, I tell you, Douglas, no one will ever accuse you of not being ambitious, okay?
Hey, I've been like this my whole life. I'm optimistic and I'm ambitious and I love people. Well, I get the love back.
Well, absolutely. I have to tell you that we only have so much time to live, so we might as well maximize the optimism, right?
Yeah, you're 100% right. And I was catastrophically wounded in Vietnam. That's why with my foundation, I write direct checks to the catastrophically wounded people. You've seen them without faces, no arms, no legs. Mine are all under my clothing. I've got the scars. But I was hit by a large, what we call booby trap, and it killed 3 men in front of me. My men, I was infantry company commander, killed 3 in front of me, 1 behind me, and it slit my throat all the way, bashed my face in. I had a piece of bamboo that nailed my left arm to my chest, compound fracture in my right leg, and I lost my left kneecap. I was a mess. But once you survive something like that and you come out of it, life's a little different.
Douglas, I always say that life, everything happens for a reason in life, my friend, and you're a testament to that. And I'm also curious, Douglas, to tap into your corporate experiences. You mentioned you led MTV for a while as the the head of MTV Networks in New York, my friend, and I'm curious, when you look at leadership from the corporate level, how do you think it's changed, and what do you remember the most out of your MTV experience in leading such a dynamic team? What are your thoughts there?
Well, I think that I was very lucky to go to Indiana University. I didn't go to Harvard or Yale and graduate with this big network and get placed into big jobs over my head. I worked my way up from the ground to the top. And when I was started in the TV business, I worked my way into MTV because I did such a good job at with my former companies. And this leadership and the military experience and the catastrophically wounded combat veteran experience and the young officer experience put me heads and shoulders against these Harvard guys. They, I had a staff of reports of about 7 people. One of them was a Harvard MBA, and he was my worst person. I couldn't get a decision out of him. I'd have a meeting, and I'd sit in a meeting at the round table, and I'd say, okay, I've got this problem I'm dealing with. I'd like everybody's feedback. Give me your guts. I'd say, Kevin, give me your gut feeling. How do you feel about this situation? And Kevin would say, well, if it were me, here's what I would do, blah, blah, blah. And I get around to this Harvard MBA, and I'd say, what would you do, Jimmy? And he'd say, I don't give snap decisions. I'm going to have to think about this. I'll get back to you by tomorrow. Close the business tomorrow. I'll get you an answer. I said, no, just give me your gut feeling. Tell me how you feel. I don't have gut feelings. And what good did that Harvard education do him? Not much. Not much. He was frozen in that position for the rest of his career. So there's a lot there, but a lot of it comes naturally.
Well, I have to tell you, there's value in practical and common experience, isn't there?
Yes, absolutely. That's the whole key to the whole thing. I treat the doorman exactly the way I teach the CEO. No different.
It's a lost art to treat people with dignity and respect sometimes. So I can relate to that for sure, my friend. But I'm curious, with your decades of experience in the corporate arena, Douglas, I'm also curious to ask you about how leaders in decision-making roles can better incorporate individuals with disabilities, because that can certainly be a competitive advantage for a company. So how do we change the minds of executives to embrace diversity as a competitive advantage in your view, my friend?
How do I change them? I really don't try. I surround myself with the best people I can find. At MTV, you can hire anybody. MTV was, back in the 80s and 90s, it was huge. Today, it's not so big, but back in those days, it was huge. So I hired fantastic people, and people that I knew would be good, and in certain areas were better than me. Like if they're a numbers guy, I'm not a numbers person. I mean, I can read a profit and a P&L and a balance sheet, but I'm not a builder of numbers. I had a great numbers guy. So I had a great marketing guy. I had a music guy. And when I was younger, I think in 1980, I read a book that was written by Lee Iacocca. Remember, Iacocca was the head of Chrysler and Ford. Mm-hmm. And at 36 years old, Lee Iacocca was president of Ford Incorporated. At 36, he had no idea what to do. He got the job because he was smart and energetic. So what he did, he formed a group of people, 9 executives in Detroit, not in his company. He picked a sharp advertising guy, a sharp marketing guy, a sharp guy that ran production, how to build a car, and the production process. They had 9 of them, and they had dinner once a week. Iacocca and his 9 buddies. They called themselves the Fairlane Committee. He in 18 months they came up with the Ford Mustang. The whole thing, how to build it, how to make it, how to construct it, how to market it, the name Mustang, everything came from the Fairlane group. And I thought, man, that was a genius idea. So I stole that idea from Iacocca when I got to MTV.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
I was a little over my head, so I surrounded myself with the brightest, best and the brightest, and we called ourselves the Fast Lane Committee. There's a chapter in my book about it. And a guy from head of media for Bristol Myers, president of Turner Networks. I was president of MTV. Everybody from their late 30s to late 40s. I had 9 guys, and we met once a month for dinner and conversation. And man, I'll tell you, we're still best friends today, 40 years later. And it's one of the best things I've ever done.
Yeah, well, my friend, that's quite the story, and I appreciate the perspective. And Douglas, I would be curious to ask you, my friend, a lot of people are hesitant or timid when it comes to really putting themselves out there and pursuing their passions in life. So I'm curious for you, what does it mean to maximize life and really pursue the passions that you want to go after? What are your thoughts there?
I mean, from here on?
Sure, or in life in general. What are your general thoughts then?
My general thoughts are that in order to succeed, first of all, you have to have passion. You have to have energy. You have to be articulate. You don't have to be. I'm not the smartest guy in the room, Kevin. I've never been the smartest guy in the room. But I'll tell you what, I would outwork all of them. And I'm okay smart. I have a higher than average IQ, but my EQ, my emotional quotient, is off the charts.
Mm-hmm.
So you got to have that emotional quotient. You got to have passion, and you have to know what you're doing, of course. And then you have to be brave. You have to go ahead and step out. Look at you. You got this big podcast, and you've got disabilities. You're out there doing it. I don't know how to do a podcast. I don't know anything about it. That's something that is brand new to me. But it's a great idea, and you're right there doing it. You're in the top 5% or better of podcasts.
It's an art form for sure, and I appreciate the kind words, my friend. And to that point, my friend, I'm curious, Douglas, to ask you about because I know you're a big believer in the idea of embracing the concept of powerful and positive thinking and celebrating life at any age. So tell me, Douglas, why is that important to you?
I think it's something, Kevin, you have or you don't have. I happen to have it, and that's part of my luck. I feel lucky to be able to have this instilled in me, probably by my mother. But you got to have the itch. You need to be positive, and you need to be brave. And I'm brave. I don't have any. I wish I had fear. I don't have fear. I lost my sense of fear in Vietnam. Fear is a good thing. Fear is like a warning signal. Be careful. Something's going on here. Fearfulness is a good thing. I don't have that. So I can march in bravely without even being brave about it. So you got to have these characteristics. I've got 4 of them right here. This is what I go by. Did you read that?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Values, vision, competency, and courage. You got to have all those. You got to have them. And all good leaders have it to one degree or another. Stronger in one, not all four, maybe stronger in one, a lot of values. But you got to have the vision, competency, and courage, or nothing will happen. And when you have that, people depend on it, and you go higher.
And coming from you, based on your near-death experience, that holds more weight, my friend. And I'm curious to ask you about the idea of perspective in life, because Douglas, one of the tragedies of life today, in my view, is that the world has become so sort of what I call territorial, and it's hard sometimes to come to art of compromise, my friend. And when you have a brush with death, and when you see the other side, the word perspective has different meanings. So I'm curious to ask you about how you view the word perspective and your message to people that may be in that territorial mindset and not open to different perspectives. What would you say your thoughts would be in that regard?
I would say that, and that's a great question, by the way. That's a real thought-provoking question. How do you bring people together in this divided world we're in today? And that's where people like you and me come in. You got to bridge the gap, and you have to do it in different ways because every situation is totally different. So what I would do is I would find, let's say, how about the election that just happened? I'm too liberal to be a Republican, and I'm too conservative to be a Democrat. So I'm in the middle. So when I have these arguments, political arguments, and I have them, I try to find something that we both believe in. Let's forget Trump. Nobody likes Trump. I know him. He's a narcissistic, excuse my language, he's a narcissistic asshole. But guess what? He's in on it. He said, I'm sorry I'm this way. It's the way my father was. It's the way I was brought up. I can't help it. I say these stupid things because I can't help it. It just comes out. But what I do, I try to find something good about what Trump is doing and explain the good parts about Trump to my liberal, very liberal, I've got a group of very liberal left-wing friends. And they don't necessarily buy everything I'm saying, but it's a starting point. And you need to find a grain of truth on both sides to bring them together. Because if you don't, they'll never come together. They won't come together. But they normally do.
Yeah, there's more that brings us together than separates. And Douglas, it's one of the main reasons I wanted to start this podcast. And I'm also curious to get your thoughts on the influence of media today, because when you were in media, it's a lot different now, and the silos of media where you can get information and extract opinions is a lot different. So I'm curious, from a 30,000-foot view, how do you compare media today from when you were in it, my friend? How has it gotten better, and what gives you the most concern? I'm curious to get your answer.
I'm very high on the media today. It's so much better than it was when it was, all you had was ABC, CBS, NBC, and that was it. And you had the New York Times, you had the Chicago Tribune, the LA Times. That was it. Now today you've got all these avenues, but I'll tell you the basic fundamentals haven't changed a bit. You need to communicate. You need to be a little more tech savvy. But I don't see a big problem with the media today. It can be, you can go off kilter pretty easily, because everything is shared with social media. If you say something stupid, it can get around pretty fast. So that's where Trump's problem is. Everybody picks up on his stupid statements. But we all make stupid statements occasionally. And I'm very high on the media. And I'm very also, since I was president of MTV, I've been very concentrated on demographics.
Mm-hmm.
The demographics today, you've heard about how Brokaw said that the World War II generation was the best generation ever. That's
I've
not
heard
true.
that, yeah.
That's not true. I don't believe that at all. Every generation is better than the one before them, and that's the way it's always been in America. I don't know about other countries, but the Korean veterans were better than the veterans in World War II. The Vietnam veterans, we never lost a battle. We were bigger, we were stronger, we had high technology on our side, and media is the same way. I think the media has smart people in it. It's got dumb people in it, but they always have had them. It's just more. It's more divided now because of all the different avenues we've got. We ever dreamed of having the internet when you were a child? Nobody did. And what's coming up? I just saw a demonstration of a future iPhone. This iPhone, I'm looking at one now that I saw a demonstration of. It's the thickness of a credit card. It's transparent, not translucent, transparent like a piece of glass. Mm-hmm. It's flexible like a credit card, and you can keep it in your pocket. And you touch a little black dot on the bottom, and it pops 4-color art. I mean, you can see it then it looks just like your iPhone. They keep it this size because you need it to have a screen. It could be the size of a stamp. So, and you know what? It's not going to change that much, except, information is information. So I'm a big believer in the future. I think we're in for a great ride. And I'm sorry, at my age, I'm not going to have, decades to enjoy it. Mm-hmm. But can you imagine what's going to happen 50 years from now? Look back 50 years. We didn't even have, all we had were telephones. Mm-hmm. So what's going to happen? I don't know, but I'm looking forward to it. I think we're going to, because the good will work and the bad will not work.
Yeah, absolutely. My only follow-up to that, Douglas, would be to ask you, with all of the different silos of media and directions that we have today, are you concerned or worried at all on people's ability to filter or vet information to get the factual information out in order to make fact-based decisions? Because, now more than ever, people are affected by what they see in the media. So how do you suggest we vet it to make informed decisions with that as a backdrop? What are your thoughts there?
That's a real good question too. And I'm just as positive about that as I am everything else. I think that we've got good brains out there, and the good ideas survive, the bad ideas don't. The good people survive, the bad ones don't. And it's just maybe get quicker to it. A little harder to hide if you're a bad person. When I say bad, I mean incorrect, really, not bad. I know some incorrect people that do some bad things because of the decisions. But it's a good point, because all this information is right there, and you can abuse it, or you can not understand it. But if you abuse it or don't understand it, you shouldn't be in a high level anyway. So I don't think it changes that much. I think it's all about people, and if a bad idea is exposed, it drifts away. Mm-hmm. The good ideas survive, and we build on those. So that's why this technology we have is going to boom in the next generation. It's just going to. We can't even imagine what it's going to be yet.
Yeah, it's certainly important. And Douglas, in the spirit of this conversation, I want to end on a positive note, my friend, and I'm curious to ask you a two-part question to end our conversation. So, Douglas, for you, I'm curious, what's the best part about living life? And if you were asked to describe your legacy to someone, how would you want your legacy to be described, my friend, both personally and professionally? What are your thoughts there?
That's a real personal question. I'd have to say he was my legacy, I hope, is that I was a good, honest person and generous. I'm overly generous. I analyze signatures as a hobby. I could analyze your signature just from what I've known of you, and I could tell you things about you that your signature says that you haven't told me yet. Mm-hmm. But so in other words, people have a signature, and mine is a positive, straightforward, no BS signature, and that's I want to keep that, and I hope I'm thought of in that way when I'm long gone. I've been a good husband. I raised more hell when I was young than anybody my age. I did outrageous things. I spent today's equivalent of $185,000 in 4 days in Bangkok, Thailand. Think about that.
That's some shopping spree, my friend.
That was before I met my wife, by the way. I've been forgiven for all those sins. So I've lived it all, and I've done it all. So, and I think everybody does the same thing. You're living your life. Mm-hmm. How many people with your disability would have a national, probably international podcast? How many? Maybe two? I can't. How you tell me? Probably not very many.
Not very many. You're right.
Many, I'll tell you. First of all, when I heard about you and I looked into you, they didn't mention your disabilities at all. Not one time. I was surprised when you mentioned it. But that's you, and I've got my disabilities too. But we all have them, and you learn how to make it happen. So I hope I'm a guy that made it happen, pretty successful, not as successful as a lot of people, more successful than a lot of others, but just a decent person, and I lived a good life.
Yeah, absolutely. And Douglas, just before I ask you how people can get in contact with you or buy the book, my friend, I'm curious to ask you one final follow-up, and that, my friend, is this: do you think there's value and wisdom of experience, my friend?
Say that again, one more time.
Yeah, I'm just curious to know if you think there's value in the wisdom of experience.
Is there value in that? Absolutely. I think that we all have wisdom from experience. Some of our experiences are less than others. I study these older people, and I got some good news for you. This young generation, it's called the Alpha generation. Have you heard about them? Over 13 and over.
I have, yeah.
13 and under. Wait till they grow up. These people don't know racism. They're not racist. We have racism all over our country, not with the Alpha generation. They're conservative. When I say conservative, I don't mean politically. They're conservative in their way they live. They're going to be well educated. They're going to be bigger and stronger. They're going to grow to be 120 years old, and they'll be around a long time. And the Alpha generation is going to save our country. I'm convinced of that. I spent a lot of time with them. So that, these values and vision, they're on my two top: values, vision, competency, and courage. That's how I run my life.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Living life is an inexact science. Some days we're going to get it right, and some days we're not. Right?
That's right. Probably more days it's not than right. So, just I hope I get them right on the big issues, and the little issues sort of follow along.
Well, absolutely, my friend. And finally, Douglas, tell me if people want to get connected with the work that you're doing in your foundation, you personally, or buy the book. What's the best way they can do that?
Well, I've got my email address is an easy one. It's my name, DouglasGreenlaw@AOL.com. I can email me. I've got several websites. I've got my foundation website, the Greenlaw Foundation. It's thegreenlawfoundation.org. That's an easy one. So I'm available. I'm easy to find. I'm all over Google. I'm all over the internet. I'm easy to find. If somebody wants to find me, just put my name in Google, Douglas J. Greenlaw, and I'll pop up all over the place.
Well, I'll tell you, Douglas, that's the magic of technology and Google, isn't it?
Amazing.
Absolutely. Well, my friend, I'm much grateful and smarter for having this conversation, and I want to thank you for your service to the country and for all you're doing to move the needle of progress forward for veterans like yourself and for all of us to learn from your example. My friend, I want to thank you for the privilege of engaging in conversation with you this afternoon, and I want to thank you for being here. It's most appreciated.
Well, I'd like to know you better. You sound like the kind of guy I'd like to know. And we have a lot more similarities than we do differences, I'm sure. So thank you for the opportunity, and I appreciate the time on this valuable podcast. I know all about it.